I've been sober for 14 years.
Wow.
And so a lot of that for me is having a close knit group of people that are already caught up on my life. So I don't have to like explain a backlog of like my own shit to somebody new,
Yeah.
and checking in on folks. I just kind of stay busy with things that bring me joy, that bring me happiness. I journal for sort of like life tracking, and I also journal because our brains don't think in a linear way. By putting pen to paper, I can often kind of get to the point. I've also found that by like documenting things, I can then say like, I have a place for this. So if I start ruminating on a thought, I can say, like that's already been written down and we can come back to that later.
Welcome to the Collaborative Resource Hub by Wellness Provisions. We're bridging the gap between mental health, wellness, and rock and roll. I'm Amy McBride, owner of Wellness Provisions, the most badass wellness business. Hey, are you feeling a little stuck in life? I offer wellness coaching sessions. Book a session with me if you're seeking to get healthy and ahead. Sessions are available worldwide. And check this out. Wellness Provisions supplies rock and rollers with high-quality supplements. We've simplified your shopping experience and given you a trustworthy place to go where you can essentially shop blindfolded. And did you know all our Collaborative Resource Hub interviews air on YouTube as well as all major podcast platforms? Subscribe to stay in the loop. Go immerse yourself in the full Collaborative Resource Hub experience over on our website. You'll have access to helpful resources that will inspire and educate you. So let's inspire each other. If that guy did it, so can you. Last but not least, my legal disclaimer. Nothing in this interview or the Collaborative Resource Hub substitutes medical advice. Please connect with your GP if you need medical guidance. Shaun, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing pretty well. I might murder my cat because he's driving me nuts. So if there's a cat in this interview, my apologies.
We're pretty pro cat at the at Middle Age Queers headquarters.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with like a lot of our artwork centers around our friend's cat.
Yeah. It's the cat with the chef's hat for the Gary's Making Biscuits, right?
Yeah. It's actually a really good friend of ours named Bopa. She has a cat that adopted her named Gary. And he is constantly she was posting videos for years of this cat making biscuits on her.
Yeah,
and we created a whole song, and now we're putting out a picture disc to commemorate Gary. Yeah, she
That's
she
awesome.
does a 501c3 nonprofit that feeds homeless Oaklanders in the middle of the week, because there's not that many services that happen during the week that are usually on weekends.
Oh, that's awesome. That's super cool. I'll get the link from you because I want to link that with this interview so it's available for people to
Okay, cool.
see. So for people who don't know your band, Middle Age Queers, how would you describe your music?
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
All of us have played in various different subgenres of punk rock bands. Nikki, our drummer, she played in Shutters, and Josh was in Fang. He was in one incarnation of or not Yaphet Kotto. He was in one version of Flipper, a short-lived iteration of Flipper. He also was in the Insaints, which if you look up the Insaints history in Berkeley, it's very wild and very sordid. Our guitarist, Mag, was in Yaphet Kotto. He was also in Bread and Circuits and a bunch of other stuff. And I was in The Cost, which was one of the last bands that was on Lookout before Lookout shuttered. And prior to that, I was in a band called Wet Nap.
Cool.
So we all kind of met, we all actually met via a Facebook post. We all had Josh Levine in common, our bassist, and he just threw out like, who wants to start a middle-aged queercore band?
Yeah.
And a bunch of people responded. And then when it came time to actually show up, then it was us.
That's awesome.
So,
and
yeah.
You guys, you get along and you vibe on each other and the music's killer and it all works.
I mean, sometimes we're like oil and water, but like that's what happens when you get four people that are a little bit older with strong opinions. But for the most part, like when we form as Voltron, things are very effortless. I've never been in a band that manages to write so easily, record so easily, Um, if only record pressing times were faster, because we have like 20 recorded songs and only 8 of them are out on vinyl. But supply chain, pandemic, I don't understand it.
Yeah. I like that you guys were the ones that it was like meant to be, basically. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So changing gears, we talk about music for like this long and then totally change gears. What does well-being or wellness mean to you?
It's a combination of a few things. Physical health is something that I think first comes to mind for a lot of folks.
Mhm.
My relationship with that has been an ongoing journey. I'm currently kind of under the mantra of like, fit is not a body type. So I work out at a local gym here in Oakland called Radically Fit, that centers itself on BIPOC femmes,
Okay.
but all are welcome. And the whole idea of this space is that it kind of works to kind of undo a lot of the toxic Western masculinity that a lot of us just have by being Americans. And moving around and doing stuff with your body feels good.
Hmm.
Like in turn, I can sleep better. In turn, when I am on stage bouncing around for 30 minutes to, an hour, I'm not in pain the next day. So things like that. Then, mental health, it's incredibly hard to find any sort of like mental health care in the United States unless you are able to pay for it out of pocket.
Hmm.
Um, and then, that becomes such a huge wedge for so many people. I generally do a lot of like mutual aid stuff. So I'm involved in a lot of 12-step groups.
Yeah.
I've been sober for 14 years.
Wow.
And so a lot of that for me is having a close knit group of people that are already caught up on my life. So I
Mhm.
don't have to like explain a backlog of like my own shit to, somebody new, and checking in on folks. And that kind of got reinvigorated at the beginning of the pandemic. A lot of my stuff no longer deals with the physical or mental cravings for drugs and alcohol. A lot of my stuff now is around other people. Um, and wanting to please people and control situations so that I feel safe.
Yeah.
Um, and that's really flared up during the pandemic.
Are you
you know,
so are you working on like healthy boundaries, for example, being able to say no or stuff like that?
yeah, I mean, and a lot of this stuff at first, right before the pandemic hit, I thought to myself, I need to go to Al-Anon. And so I started doing Al-Anon, which is a 12-step program. It's kind of the sister program to AA. And it was the first mutual aid peer support group that kind of came about because of alcoholics.
Mm-hmm.
Because of alcoholics, and after a while in Al-Anon, I kind of stumbled upon ACA, which more addresses my needs than
Okay.
Al-Anon.
What's ACA?
Adult Children of Alcoholics.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I could see that being a little more like honed in, more specific than just Al-Anon.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because I was talking to another sober punk rocker, and I won't divulge their name because of anonymity, but uh, they were saying, when I first got exposed to AA, it was this thing about the steps that everybody could have access to, but not a lot of people thought that they qualified for it. And that once he found things like Al-Anon and ACA, just by very nature of being a human and living on a planet and having people who have power over you, that everyone could kind of qualify for ACA or Al-Anon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and being able to kind of extend what I learn in those programs to my relationships with other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have like, was there like kind of a defining moment where you realized, 14 years ago, I guess, that you kind of needed to take better care of yourself and prioritize yourself more?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty low bottom. So, I was homeless, living out of a duffel bag and vomiting blood. It really, there couldn't be another sign that things were more dire. Um, I ended up doing a detox program in San Francisco. It's a 2-week detox program where it's basically a hospital setting.
Hmm.
They give you medication to kind of wean off whatever you've been on. And then from there, I went to a program in the avenues of San Francisco called Acceptance Place, which was a queer male identifying 90-day program.
Okay.
And so, I got housed for like a quarter of a year and found employment, moved straight from there to an apartment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so my trajectory was actually really good.
Yeah.
Most folks, I mean, like my best friend that I met in that program died a few years ago. That there's not. I'm very grateful to be one of the people who made it. Unfortunately, it's not something that everyone gets to recover from.
It's true, but I mean, you made good choices for yourself and you put work in and had the intention of wanting more. So, I mean, you worked towards it, right?
Right. And I think that that's one of the underlying things that sort of that's a common thread from people with long-term sobriety is that they didn't stop. It wasn't like all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
When I hear of people coming back after having some time and then relapsing, the stories generally sound the same. Like I stopped going to meetings, I didn't have a sponsor anymore. I decided that smoking pot would be okay, and then it turned into whatever. And no judgment to people. There are people out there who manage to do that just fine,
Hmm.
and they turn out okay. Um, I I am pretty certain that I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
And for folks that can, after a little bit, and control their drinking, like my hats are off to them.
Right.
You know,
But yeah,
I,
not everybody has that like that chemical ability to jump back in and just kind of like skim on the surface like that.
yeah, and one of the things that I think is unfortunate is that we kind of deal with things as black and white, and there really isn't a program out there, at least not none that I know of, that gets people into healthy uses of substances. Um, there's harm reduction, and people can navigate that pretty well, but it's not where courts send you. Courts send
Uh-huh.
you to AA,
Uh-huh.
and AA isn't really equipped to deal with people who may be having momentary issues, and it's unfortunate, but it's what we got.
Yeah. So aside from 12-step programs and just that community kind of support, is there anything else then or even, now that really helps you feel balanced and, fulfilled and like in control, but not to a fault, of your life?
Yeah, I live in the Fruitvale neighborhood of Oakland, or the Fruitvale district, I guess. I grew up not too far away from here. um, there is something really nice about having a community that I feel grounded in.
Hmm.
Like I know all of my neighbors. My sister lives downstairs from me. We've got two friends that live in our backyard, that in studio apartments. They
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
just
yeah.
but like I have this nice little like community here. I've got my community at the gym. I play in another band, and we share a practice space with middle-aged queers. And so I just kind of stay busy with things that bring me joy, that bring me happiness. I volunteered a lot more pre-pandemic, because I have a 1-year-old nephew downstairs who can't get vaccinated. The sort of direct service work that I was doing, volunteering, doesn't really happen as much, but volunteered a lot with St. Anthony's, which I used to work at, which is the oldest social services nonprofit in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
Uh, the AIDS Housing Alliance, I did some work for them. And I'm currently serving on the board for Holden High School, which is a alternative high school here in the East Bay that, for the most part, the student population is folks who otherwise wouldn't have graduated from standard high schools, public high schools.
Hmm.
I'm an alumni and now I'm a board member. And our population of students is a lot of queer or non-binary students, a lot of trans students, and it's been a lot of trans students since I was in my teens as a student there.
Okay.
We jokingly refer to it as the Punk Rock Academy, because like Eggplant from Blatz used to teach guitar, and Kamala from Kamala and the Carnivores used to teach math, and the woman who runs the Bob Festival, the International Punk Rock Festival, is one of the directors. So it's there's this legacy of there's 40 years of cool ass punk rockers coming out of that school or teaching at that school.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. Here's an advert in less than 20 seconds. Did you know that Wellness Provisions offers one-on-one wellness sessions? Yep. So if you're seeking to get healthy and ahead in life, but feeling a little stuck, then book a session and let's get you unstuck. Now back to the interview. Is there anything that you do, like getting into nature or journaling or things like that help you kind of feel centered and bring you back into yourself?
Yeah, every morning before I get out of bed, I think to myself 5 things that I'm grateful for.
Yes.
And oftentimes they're the same stuff, right? But it's okay because I'm still grateful for them. So I'll think of 5 things that I'm grateful for. I journal as well.
Mhm.
And I journal for sort of like life tracking, and I also journal because our brains don't think in a linear way.
Right.
And by putting pen to paper, I can often kind of get to the point. I've also found that by like documenting things like pen to paper, I can then say like, I have a place for this. So if I start ruminating on a thought, I can say, like that's already been written down and we can come back to that later.
And that helps you like to kind of lose those thoughts that are consuming, or maybe do they produce anxiety for you otherwise?
Yeah. I mean, I think, being a survivor of abuse, and being someone who was out on the streets for as long as I was, my brain is now kind of hardwired to think of every possible bad outcome and how to solve it.
Hmm.
And so I'll have like a list of 100 things that could go wrong in different directions and how I'm going to try and fix any of those.
Yeah.
And none of them ever happen, right?
Right.
Like anything that I can think of won't actually be reality. But I find that if I just kind of go like, this is what's going on, and I feel, and my part in it is that I can kind of take accountability for the situation and go like, all right, well, let's see what happens next. You know,
Yeah.
ultimately, I have really no power in it.
Yeah. I mean, well, but that's the thing is like our brains were either stuck on the past or just worried and, creating scenarios in the future, and the things never happen. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's detaching, like releasing that need to control, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much of it is trying to have some semblance of control
Hmm.
when really that's just an illusion.
Yeah. Do you ever do like, like affirmations, or do you do anything like that to kind of keep yourself, stable?
Yeah. So I had a lot of like negative self-talk from my teens into my 20s.
Hmm.
And at a certain point, I was just, especially right after I got sober, I was just absolutely tired of listening to my brain talk shit about me.
Hmm.
And there would be a thought that would kind of come into my mind of like, I'm such an idiot. I hate myself. I want to die. And every time that comes into my brain, then out loud, I would say like, I love my life. And I still to this day occasionally will just be like, I love my life. And you know, every once in a while I'll get like kind of looks from people, but whatever, I'm saying that I love my life.
Yeah.
There's something about actually saying it out loud that like
Hmm.
is louder than my brain. So I love my
Totally.
life. And it reached a certain point in my early to mid 30s where as soon as I started having the thoughts that would produce that negative self-talk, I would instantly say I love my life before my brain even got a chance to fire up. And that's been really nice. You know, like there's a Me Without You song that says I haven't even thought about killing myself in 5 months. And that song totally resonated with me the first time I heard it, because I was a few years sober and I was like, oh yeah, I haven't thought about killing myself in ages.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's empowering.
Mhm.
But that's it. I mean, it's getting so many people to realize that self-talk, negative self-talk plagues a lot of people, and getting people to realize that you can wash that negative thought out, overpower it with something positive. It's awesome because it works. And the more you do it, that repetition, it starts to like rewire the brain. Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, and so much of like my upbringing was negative consequences. So like for whatever reason, my brain was like, no, negative consequences works. But negative consequences, it may have worked, but it was the only thing that I knew that worked. Right. So much of like, my past 14 years has been just about forgetting what I knew, acknowledging that it happened,
Sure.
right? But like understanding that like I can pay forward with something different.
That's right. You can create new standards, patterns. Yeah. There was something that I read basically saying, how your brain is wired to help you survive, not to make you happy. The
Hmm.
brain is wired to get you through difficult situations. And then, when we become adults, then I think it should be our responsibility for ourselves and our future happiness to then, be like, okay, see all that past stuff. Fuck that. This is what I want moving forward, and claim it.
Right. And I think, and here's sort of the thing too, is that our brains always look for the fastest route to something,
Mhm.
right? Like we want expeditious, but putting in that work, you'll get there to a point where your brain will start making the connection faster to more positive things.
Yeah.
It's just it's so hard at first, but now looking back like to 14 years ago, to when I was 27, well, of course I didn't believe that any of this was going to work. I had 27 years of experience telling me that that's what brought me to the age of 27, but it's hard to kind of it's hard to gain trust in something different.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you place value on like food? Are you conscious of what you eat? Does it make you feel better?
I have a interesting relationship with food. So my family is comfort eaters.
Mm.
We're big carb fans. I joke that most of my genetic makeup is Viking DNA, so I'm predispositioned to like be like, yes, sugar, bread. I got to store that for the winter.
Yeah.
Um, and we're also a bunch of gluten sensitive people. I didn't end up with it, but the rest of my family does, and I'm pretty sure that it will develop later in life for me. Um, I have been sort of working on can I have a banana instead of a piece of cake this morning? And not that I'm going to deprive myself of cake, but is there a better choice to give me energy throughout the day? Um, I still love to get a piece of pie or a piece of cake, put ice cream on top of it, gobble that in 20 minutes, and then fall asleep from the glucose overshoot. That is an excellent way to end the day for me. Um, as far as stuff like meat, I've been classifying myself as a freegan more recently.
Oh,
My
okay.
husband eats meat.
Okay.
When we first started cohabitating, um, I had been vegetarian for so long that I completely forgot that there was a meat section in the grocery store. So if it's cooked, if it's free, I'll eat it. I don't go out of my way to consume animal products, but
Right.
so I say freegan.
I get
Um,
it. I get it. Okay.
it's a weird thing to balance, right? Like I don't eat fish because I think that we're not supposed to eat them. I think maybe
Okay.
in my past life I was a fish. I don't know. Like I see fish and I'm like, oh, why would I do that?
Mhm.
I don't even like the word fish. Seafood pretty like 99% of seafood just I don't know, it grosses me out for some reason. Like people talk about like eat like this is scallops and I don't know, just any of it just sounds it's gross to me.
I went on a fishing trip with my grandfather when I was like 6, 7 years old, and I ended up catching the biggest fish that day. And they were all so proud of me. And I remember getting back to my grandparents' house, and they cooked it, and I remember it coming out and me just being like, I've got to eat that, and just being horrified uh throughout the meal. And it was one of the, like I knew that I had to eat it, but it was, yeah, I think
At
that was
least
the moment in time where I was just like, fish is not supposed to be food.
at least they didn't make you fillet it or, like cut them open and stuff.
Yeah, it was definitely at an age where they weren't going to trust me with a knife. So
Yeah. Um, do you take any supplements or anything like that?
I do. I take a immune boosting. I think it's actually on my counter. It's like a 7-in-1, like immune system boosting thing. And I also take a NAD supplement. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those.
Mm-mm.
Um, the idea is that it's supposed to restart your thymin.
Okay.
It's basically an anti-aging nutraceutical.
Okay.
So when I first started taking it, it was so that my nails could grow back thicker. But I started noticing that like everything was growing back thicker and fuller, and that I was suddenly, gray hairs were starting to not be as present. So I take that as well. The brand that I get is called Elysium.
Okay.
It's highly speculative, right? It's basically they did a lab experiment using a very similar thing in like lab rats or mice or something, and found that it extended the test subjects lifespan by about 40%. They're not exactly sure what, if anything, it does to humans
Uh-huh.
at the adjusted dose, but I just kind of took it because
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
The science is there to support it. I mean, there's no inhuman tests of it, but
Well, and anecdotally, if is that a word? Your
yeah,
anecdotal relationship with it. I mean, it's making your, hairs, nails, all that stronger.
yeah. I mean, if anything, if the combating cellular aging that it refers to is just growing back like stronger hairs and nails, cool.
Yeah.
Um, if I live to the age of 140, also cool.
Far out. What is your favorite quote?
Ah, yes. Um, right now, it would be the Avengers. I believe in me. I make my dreams real. And the first time I was exposed to that was not through the Avengers. It was from a 15 song. 15 was notorious for throwing in older punk rock songs into their lyrics. And it actually, for like a 90s kid, uh, it actually created this like gateway where I could like kind of burrow back in time and discover all these other bands. Um, but every once in a while, like I get that line in my head. Like I have so many things in my life where like there are dreams that I had as a teenager or as like a homeless 20 something, that are coming true. Like I I own a home in my hometown where I live with my sister and some of my friends. I'm married to my best friend. We have 3 zygotes on ice right now that are going to get transferred next year. Um, well, one of them is going to get transferred. I'm not signing up for triplets. Um, and I'm in a really cool queer punk rock band with musicians that I really like as people, and we have a lot of fun. And the idea of creating a like midlife crisis band is hilarious to me and beyond my wildest dreams back when I was out there. So that lyric is still pertinent to me 20 something years later.
Yeah. Do you have, and if you don't or don't want to share, that's fine, but do you have goals, for your future that are kind of now like locked and loaded that you're working towards, or just sort of enjoying where you are and just letting it all unfold?
I mean, a little bit of both, right? Like, when we started Middle Age Queers, the idea was that we were going to play some house parties and like maybe record a tape that we could pass out to our friends. And I know this is going to air afterwards, but we're playing punk rock bowling with MDC.
Yeah.
Um, we have another record coming out. We've got an EP coming out. Like what?
Right.
Um, I'm looking forward to having like a last hurrah before our kid comes into this world. My husband and I have been putting off kind of doing like a month-long backpacking thing across Europe. Hopefully we'll get to do it next year, COVID permitting.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm kind of at the point where like all the things that I really, really wanted to happen have happened. So now everything is just like icing. It's all
Yeah.
gravy.
Yeah. And it sounds like a lot of those goals, they're deeper value driven kind of things that you wanted in your life. So I mean, then that's like the foundation for everything. So, and those are there.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted a home that nobody could take away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got that now. And having it be in my hometown, I know that I'm incredibly privileged to be able to buy a home in Oakland, in this century, because a lot of my friends who I went to school with, they're pushed all the way out to places like Stockton now.
Mm-hmm.
So immensely grateful for that. But yeah, I mean, it's all been a wild ride, right? Like, and the basic necessities for so much of what, I basically wanted to create the foundation for things to just happen, the stability for things to
Yeah.
just happen.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay, so the tagline for my business is delay dying. So I like to ask people, what advice would you give to someone to delay dying, or in other words, live happier and healthier, aside from taking that supplement?
I'll link you to it too if you're
Yeah.
interested. Um, Quit your addictions in the order that they're trying to kill you. Um, some of them might be keeping you here right now. I know for me, some of them kept me alive, but that at a certain point they wore out their usefulness. And I try and make it a thing where like it averages out to half an hour a day of some sort of exercise. And that can include walking or going ham and powerlifting. I do 2 or 3 powerlifting classes a week that are 90 minutes.
Whoa.
Um, and I do those because I've watched the elders in my family, get jobs where they're sedentary and then retire, and it's not cute what happens to them afterwards. uh, my grandfather lived to be 99 and a half, and his secret was keep moving no matter what, even if it hurts. um, Fun little story about that. He was 97 years old and he was helping me put a loft in a van that I was about to tour in. And he's crawling out of the back. And the rest of my band looks at me like I'm an asshole for not helping my grandfather out of the van. And I was
Yeah.
like, no, 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 no. You don't mess with this guy. He's doing a thing. And he gets out and he dusts himself off and he says, don't get old, boys. It's a pain in the neck. Um, but so I've gotten to see, the long-term effects of people staying busy and moving even in older age.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've seen the effects of people younger than them being sedentary, and people who are 30 years younger than my grandfather were fall apart really quickly. So yeah, keep moving.
Absolutely. Yeah. And gratitude, just because that's one thing that just I've picked up on, from this chat is You just seem very aware, self-aware, and just very thankful for everything that's in your life. And that positivity is so healthy for every cell in your body.
I've never thought of it that way.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, think about like negative people. There's always something wrong. Nothing's ever perfect. They're sick all the time. They complain. But the more you're thankful and grateful, like it changes your body on a cellular level.
I like that.
Yeah, keep doing it.
I will.
All right. Do you guys have anything cool coming up or coming out that you want to share on?
Yeah, so we have a picture disc EP. It's a 4-song EP. It's got 2 songs off of our first record called Too Fag for Love. And then it's got 2 brand new songs. It's a hilarious picture disc. On the back side of it, we're dressed up like Motley Crue. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that should be actually coming out mid to late March.
Okay.
We have another full length coming out on Say 10 Records. And that's called Shout at the Hetero. We have a little Motley Crue theme going on in this band. And Shout at the Hetero is a 7-song, 10-inch record. And that should be coming out sometime in 2022, whenever they can press it. As far as shows, the next big one we're doing, I think by the time this airs, I can say anyway, we're playing December 11th at the Ivy Room in Albany, California. And we're playing with Year of the Fist, who are awesome. It's their annual Year of the Fistmas party. So they pick a benefiting nonprofit and all the money goes to that nonprofit. Last year, we did it with them, but we did a virtual stream one. And that was pretty fun. And we're super stoked that they asked us again to do this year's. So yeah, that's what's on the horizon for us. Long term, we hope to hit the road sometime in 2022, COVID permitting. Hopefully there will be some awesome band that has more clout than us that will be watching this and they'll be like, we should take those middle-aged queers on tour with us, because booking DIY shows and house parties is a whole new weird thing for me 20 years after.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's, use the positivity and
I'm going to manifest it
for you too. Yep. That you're going to find an amazing headliner for that tour and it's going to all come together.
Totally. Laura Jane, call us.
All right, Shaun, thank you so much for making time and chatting and sharing your experiences. I think you offer a lot, just what you've gone through. I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people and hopefully inspire them. So thank you.
Cool. Yeah. And people can find me on all the socials. And if having a conversation about problematic substance use is something that you want to have, I'm more than willing to have that conversation with you.
Cool. That's awesome. And you're available to help people. So good. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day and thank you again.